I'm Dustin. You got a good, can you see this okay? And good luck, you're on my YouTube channel. And welcome to episode 1 of the Wood Age. I was looking at my favorite news magazine, and there on the arts page was a review of a book titled The Age of Wood, Our Most Useful Material and the Construction of Civilization by Roland Ennos, or Ennos. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm going to call him Roland. And I'm going to read you just the first paragraph of this review. From the forest canopy to skyscrapers, the whole human story can be told from the perspective of wood, said Michael Stevens in the New York Times. Biologist Roland Ennos does just that in his perspective-altering new book, which points out that even the Stone, Iron, and Bronze Ages, wood was more critical to human existence, etc., etc. And I read that, and I thought, finally, somebody has documented what I've been working on for about 60 years, and here's how I say it. I say, Stone Age, Smone Age. They're all woodworking tools, right? What do you think? You think the cavemen said, hey, we got all these cool stone tools, let's work some wood? No, they've been working wood for years. The problem is that academia requires evidence. I studied this stuff when I was in college and didn't go very far. The rule is, if you don't have evidence, it doesn't exist. And that's the problem. So, now, a fellow like Mr. Ennos, I'm going to call him Roland, here's his book, he's at the University of Hull, Hull in England, and so he has theories and hypotheses and theses. And these can be defined as what he has to say about something and his argument to the point that it's maybe true. I'm an old hippie, and I have raps. And the good definition of rap is what I have to say about something and my argument to the effect that it might be true. So here's my rap. Mr. Ennos, I'm going to call him Roland. We are colleagues, of course. Roland writes books. He's written a book on trees. He's written a book on plant life. He's, in fact, a biologist. I'm an artist, and I don't write books. What I do is I give gallery talks. And I've given as many gallery talks as Roland has written books. And I have a cardboard box in my library that's labeled the next gallery talk. So, here it is. This is the paint stick of perspective. 1 inch equals 1 million years. This line is about the beginning of what is erroneously called the Stone Age. And this line right here, I haven't marked it because it's just too convenient. It's where the paint ends, right about here, is about 5 million years. Now, I do my research in the local newspaper and the magazines I read and what people tell me. and I cut this out of the Concord Monitor, my newspaper, and here is a fellow, a young woman actually, 4.5 million years ago, and she's walking upright. And look at those fingers, and look at those opposing thumbs, and she even has opposing big toes, and the biggest brain that any mammal ever had for body size. And so from this I conclude that 5 million years, where the paint ends, is about when our ancestors climbed down out of the trees and walked on the ground. And this point, from here all the way to the Stone Age, we were nothing but woodworkers. There are no stone artifacts. I don't know, or didn't know until I read Roland's book, about where fire came in. So I was just thinking about that. And then here is that section from the beginning, the first stone tools anybody found, which were woodworking tools, all the way to this black line at the end. This black line at the end represents roughly 8,000 years. 100% of all civilization, all reading and writing, everything from the Egyptians, the Chaldeans, all through the Greeks, through, and right here on the edge where I'm just touching it is our digital age, which is of course where I'm operating now. Isn't this interesting? So this is what I started with, and this is what I had going for me, and this picture and a few other things until I read Roland's book, which I haven't read. I got a copy out of the library immediately and read about 60 pages, and it was so wonderful I just had to stop. It was, I'm reading his book and I'm saying, when will he discover fire? I'm sure Roland will discover fire. And then I said, I could anticipate, when will he discover fire hardening? And yes, he did. And at 60 pages, I just had to stop because I want to share this with you. And I'm going to use this as a vehicle to tell you everything I know. When I read this review, the first thing that occurred to me was, this guy who wrote this book, he knows twice as much as I know. And I know twice as much as he knows. So let's get started and see where it takes us. And let's see what it does to my paltry little paint stick of perspective. He begins with a prologue in the Mast yard. This is the story of the king's broad arrow and the trees that had to be preserved by law for the masts for his ships. And Roland tells us of piles of stuff I never knew, but I live right here on the old Dustin farm within a stone's throw of at least one mast yard and probably two. And I am in the hand hewing business, and I get to deal with mast quality material. If you'll take a look at my, you're probably on it now, at my YouTube channel under my name, and you look at Love Is All, you will see a 13-inch square timber which actually has an orange flavor to it, pumpkin pine. Pumpkin pine is probably called pumpkin pine because it has an orange tinge to it, and probably because it cuts like a pumpkin. It's very nice wood to work. And there's a very well-managed old forest next door where the fellow kindly cuts for me, and it's my privilege to deal with this wood. So I have a kind of a physical sense of the king's broad arrow. And Roland talks about this in his own way. And he says that the wide boards, the wide flooring of the New England house is thumbing your nose at the king. Ha ha, we're taking his masts, we don't like his rules, and we're using them for our floor. And there's probably truth in that. I remember a friend who was in the building reclamation business who told me that somehow it was believed that the wide trim, always painted white, on colonial houses was a kind of a billboard saying ha ha to the King of England, is we're putting your trees on our house and thumbing our nose. I never really thought it was a very valid point of view because none of that trim was really bigger than 12 inches. But I think there must be some truth in it. What Roland does not notice is nails. Now here, where I'm sitting here in the chair where my great-grandfather died, on a farm we've been farming for 200 years, and it's our third farm in Hopkinton, New Hampshire. We have an oral tradition of our own. We've never thought about it until now, but we do. And we've always believed the reason we used wide boards was to save nails. Nails had to be made by hand. They were expensive and took time. And it's well known, of course, that buildings, old buildings, were sometimes burned down for the nails. Understand that these nails were made of iron. Iron can stand a wood fire without being destroyed. Modern nails, of course, are made of steel, which has carbon, and they burn and are destroyed by fire. So that's what our belief was, that wooden wide boards had to do with nails. So I'm just adding. This is what I'm up to. See, I'm reading Roland's book, and I'm adding to it. Now, chapter 1, which is part 1, is called Wood and Human Evolution. Chapter 1 is called Our Arboreal Inheritance. And this is quite interesting. The first points he makes is that our Western culture, the culture of the Bible, knows other mammals as hooved or clawed. They are sheep, they are dogs and cats. And so it is natural that we would have a superior attitude towards them. Whereas if we were a culture which was based originally in, say, for instance, Sumatra, where the orangutan sits at the edge of the forest and laughs at the farmer plowing his field because the orangutan is too smart. And the orangutan could talk if he wanted to, but he knows better. That would give us a different point of view. That I found that quite interesting, and I never thought about it that way before, so thank you, Roland. So Roland's thesis, almost said Roland's rap, but Roland has a thesis on this fellow, is he would have preferred to stay in the trees. And his body, this bunch of the opposing thumb and the upright posture, is all evolved to live better in trees. He didn't want to come out of the trees. He was happy there, and the only reason he came out of the tree, the main reason he came out of the trees, was environmental. The land was drying up, and the savannas were coming, and the trees were going away. And it was fire, the discovery and use of fire, that allowed him to come down out of the trees because he could keep the saber-toothed tigers away. Roland talks about the early hominids, he calls them homonyms, who actually lived in nests, made nests in the trees. And the first thing he talks about in terms of craft, in terms of primitive wood craft, is the green stick fracture. And if he thinks this fellow who has the big brain because he is a fruit eater, and trees don't like you to eat their leaves anymore. They don't like you to because they need their leaves for photosynthesis and stuff like that. So they give you fruit, but the fruit's out on the ends of the limbs, so you have to get out there. So our ancestors, according to Roland, produced these soft fingers with fingerprints on them and a layer of fat underneath, and fingernails making it easy to pick at things, and that allowed us to get farther out on the branches. And it was our upright posture that allowed us to bounce on branches and reach up and grab branches above so we could get farther out on the trees to find the fruit. And the big brain was so that we could remember where the fruit was in different places at different times. Fruit leaves are there all the time, but fruit you have to be a smarter to deal with fruit. You have to know where it was. Now I have made my living at craft fairs for 50 plus years, and if I have learned nothing else at craft fairs, it is that human beings are mammals, and they will look for the same acorns under the same tree where they found them last year. So if you're a craft artist and you're good at it, the people will come back looking for you where you were. So always stay in the same booth, in the same place. And when the administration of any given craft fair changes the floor plan, you're going to have a bad year. And for the next couple of years, people who find you will say, "Where were you last year? We were looking for you. We couldn't find you." So there. I have my ways of doing research, and Roland has his. How are we doing for time? Okay. So this kind of evolution, Roland says, and I'm sure he knows what he's talking to, happened 50 to 60 million years ago. So now my paint stick of perspective has just grown to 4 or 5 feet. Now it's about 60 inches. It's about 5 feet. So now it is the walking staff of perspective. And we now have to go to 50 million years to get the history of primitive woodworking. And what's happening here is I'm going to try to give, I suppose we may as well be academic about this. This is a course in primitive woodworking. I hope to tell you everything I've learned over my lifetime. And when I come to the end of it, I'll probably be able to remember all the stuff I think I know that doesn't connect up here, and I'll lay that on if there's any left. But your first assignment is to make yourself a Gandalf's 5-foot stick of perspective, and mark on it the same lousy 1/8 of an inch of all of civilization. And then I figured Stone Age, I put out to 1 million years. I thought that Stone Age really hadn't gotten that far yet. If you noticed, every time you read a newspaper, something about the Stone Age, they pushed it farther back and farther back. They found another fire pit. They found another stone tool that's older, that's older, that's older. And I figured they'd get to 1 million years. According to Roland, they've gone quite a bit beyond there. So let's see what I can find here. He also talks about the development of binocular vision. You look at this fellow, And you can see, it looks to me like he's wearing eyeglasses, but I don't think Benjamin Franklin invented eyeglasses only a little while ago. Uh, it just looks like eyeglasses. But binocular vision allows you to be in a tree and look through the branches and find things and be able to grab them without falling down. Oh, by the way, remember Lucy? She was a kind of an important character. They found her in the old Dubai Gorge, and she was. Let's see if I can find my notes here. She was a very old skeleton, fossilized skeleton of a hominin, and important. And the new discovery is she died in a fall, probably from a tree, and there's no question about this. They've done a lot of work on her skeleton since we heard about it in the Concord Monitor, and that's a new deal on her. So we have the binocular vision, the soft finger pads, and it's all about climbing trees. And these hominins lived in trees in nests, which they made by weaving high in the tree by breaking sticks, the green stick fracture, breaking and weaving. And this is as far as Roland goes, and oh boy, wait till he hears this, because Roland never occurred, near as I can tell. I've read 60 pages, we'll find out. But as near as I can tell, it's never occurred to Roland two things. One is that fracturing a green stick does not kill the tree. That stick stays green, keeps growing, puts off shoots because it's stressed, and heals. So if an ape makes a nest in a tree, that nest gets better and better and better all by itself. It grows into a better and better home. Not only that, but these trees, and we have them here now with our overgrowth of bird-seeded, what do we call it? There's a word we use, invasive species. We have a ground growth that is like the jungle. If you think about Tarzan swinging through the jungle on vines, these vines are ground-based, and they climb the trees. And if the hominin is intelligent enough, which I expect he is, to get up in the tree that has vines in it, he can unwrap these vines and wrap them where he wants them. So the dynamics of the ape nest, the hominin nest in the tree, which Roland is very important to Roland's argument, is far more vital than he imagined, or so it seems. We'll read on and find out. But my guess is that he's missed this. He talks about the structure of trees. He has, as it says on the back here, he has written a book titled Trees, so he must know quite a bit about them as a biologist. And what he explains, and he's talking about fruit and intelligent animals gathering fruit, is that trees get skinnier and skinnier as they go. The farther out on the tree you go, the skinnier it gets. Well, here's my rap on the tree, and it comes from willow whistles, because I started out making a bucket full of willow whistles. My father taught me here on the farm. It's one of the things that farm boys did. And I'm not going to teach you to make a willow whistle. All you got to do is look it up on YouTube, and there's plenty of people teaching you how to make willow whistles. But none of them mention this. Haven't watched everything, but so far nobody has. And a tree, this is coming from me, a tree is a cone. It starts out fat, and every place you go on a tree is skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. So when you are making your willow whistle, you need to be cognizant of working off the skinny end of the branch, even if you can't see it. Otherwise, because you have to slide the bark off to make a willow whistle, otherwise the bark will crack when you slide it off. So that's that's my lesson for today in primitive woodworking, and that's of course your second assignment in this class, is make a bucket full of willow whistles. Also, of course, make a nest in a tree. Find one with vines growing up out of the ground that wraps around the tree, so you can work with live weaving and live in it for the rest of your life. If you happen to have a house now, sell it and spend all the money on trampolines. So you can put trampolines all around underneath your tree, so that if you happen to fall out, you won't be killed in the fall the way Lucy was. How are we doing for time? 5 minutes. Okay. Well, that's a good place to stop for episode 1. I am Dan Dustin. With luck, you are on my YouTube channel. And remember to look at Love is All and get a good look at an old piece of pumpkin pine. I have a website where I sell wooden spoons. And this is my website. It's dandustin.com, and you can communicate with me through this website. If you have any questions, I'll be back, because this is to be continued, and I'll see you next time.